I like video games. Lots of them in fact. But beyond all else, I love a good play-in action RPG with hack and slash like combat. Say about the story of Kingdom Hearts what you will, the games themselves play fantastically. And since Kingdom Hearts 4 probably won't be out until, I don't know, 2080, maybe I should get working on my own take on this gameplay style. Take what I like from it, mix it together with other aspects from other games that I like, and make something that's perfect for me. I've made some fun projects before, but this, now I am making something that I wish existed, but it doesn't. And now that the idea exists in my head, it's really freaking annoying that I can't actually play it. So let's get working on my dream game. Here's the basic rundown. The map is an open world with a number of bosses that you can seek out and fight. At the moment I'm thinking about 6 of them. But let's just start with one. Each of those bosses rewards you with a weapon, giving you a new combat style with a different special ability, much like you'd get in Mega Man. And of course, each one of those weapons is going to be particularly effective against a specific type of enemy and boss. Let's get into the actual development though. Making the character controller with an orbiting camera wasn't too hard. You'll see that throughout these first months of work, the camera tends to change quite a bit as we go on, as I make small additions and improvements to it. At one point I even had to rewrite the entire thing, which took a while. The more interesting part is how the combat system will work. I'll only have a total of 7 weapons, the basic sword you start with and then the 6 boss weapons, but the system I coded for the combat is actually very flexible and should allow me to add loads and loads more weapons in the future if I wanted to. This is how it works. The weapons all have a couple of bits of data, mainly the name of the weapon and how many attacks its combo has. So let's say that the sword has a combo length of 3. Now the combat system will automatically play the animations called Sword Attack 1, Sword Attack 2 and Sword Attack 3 in the right order, as long as I hooked them up with those names in my state machine. Now, if we need to make a new weapon, let's say an axe next, the majority of the work will be creating the actual animations. But from there I can just add in those in my state machine, give the weapon prefab the proper name and combo length, and now, when we're holding the sword, we'll do the sword attacks, and when we're holding the axe, we'll do the axe attacks. This is really what the heart of the game will be about, using the different weapons. So having a system that allows me to easily change the weapons on the fly as a player and add more new weapons as a developer makes me really happy. But weapons aren't of much use if there is nothing to hit, so I needed some enemies too. Here I took some inspiration from how Kingdom Hearts handles enemies. You see, enemies aren't just placed in a map and waiting for you to come kill them like in a game such as Dark Souls. No. Instead, there are invisible enemy spawners that'll start spawning enemies when you get close enough. They spawn in a wave of enemies, and when you've killed all the enemies from that wave, the next wave will spawn. Then, when you leave the map and re-enter, all these spawners will be reset, which gives easy chances for level grinding for players that need it. So, I did exactly that. I created a spawner that allows you to specify how many waves you would spawn with that spawner. And each wave individually, you can set how many enemies it'll spawn, and put in the specific game objects for those enemies. Making it really quick and easy for me to populate the eventual levels with enemies and try out different enemy configurations. Once again, the first few months of this little adventure of mine are very much themed around making myself the tools to create the game I want to make. Allowing myself to, once I start creating the levels, work quickly and iterate a lot. The last thing I want to do is make the game an unpolished mess, because iterating on the ideas I have is too difficult due to restrictive programming. The enemy attacks themselves are simple enough, because they're all done through animations, with an event inside that animation that turns on a trigger box that'll damage the player. Once again, a simple, straightforward system that relies simply on the animations, which need to be different anyway, to create a difference between the attacks, without requiring me to dive back into the code for every enemy I make. The only thing that's going to require in-depth coding going forward will be the boss fights themselves, since those need slightly more sophisticated AI than, hey, player in range, let's go beat them up. But with the foundation that I have with these basic enemies, building on top of that to create boss fight AI should actually prove to be quite a bit of fun. Having the enemies now allows me to make a lock-on system too. This system has two states. The soft lock-on, which will only serve to make you attack in the direction of the enemy that is closest to you. That'll function a little bit like aim assist, but for physical combat. But then by pressing the lock-on button, you can focus on a specific enemy, changing the camera system from one controlled by the player to instead one that moves around to always keep both the locked onto enemy on screen, but also the player. Once you're in hard lock-on mode, you can cycle through nearby enemies to change which enemy you're locking onto. I'm particularly happy about this system and how it works. And then, after adding some XP orbs to the enemies and a simple respawn system where the player gets reset back to the last checkpoint's position and all the enemy spawners reset without having to reload the entire map every time you die, I'm about ready to start building the actual game. And this is where I stand now. After months of work going into 2023, we'll start off building the tutorial. And who knows? Once that's finished, I may drop a demo for you guys to play through it, as I continue working on the rest of the game. And if you want to see the whole journey I've been talking about in much more detail, I have a whole playlist of videos that show me actually creating all the systems that we've talked about. So go check out those videos and maybe subscribe to the channel if you want to keep up to date with my progress of my dream game. We're going to be in for a wild ride. And thanks to my patrons, you can see them on screen right now, and a special thank you to my Cave Digger tier Patreon, Syntax.